Here's what I want you guys to do. Can y'all do this for me this week? I want you guys to go out. I want you guys to find a video camera this week. I want you to go out to your neighborhood pool, and I want you to try and walk on water. All right? Michael, should they try that? Yes, they should. And then I want you to post it on Facebook and tag me. All right? Tag me in it, because I want to see it. Who's going to go out there and do that this week? Okay, awesome. Awesome. All right. I might even try it myself. That's all I'm going to say. I might try it myself. And we might get good old Cody to do it. Is that good, Cody? Where you at, buddy? Cody, he likes to potty. Anyways. I know. All right, Matthew chapter 14. Walking on water is next to impossible. The reason I say next to impossible is because Jesus did it, all right, which still makes it impossible for a lot of us, but also we find in this particular passage that Peter did it as well. But if you notice, the reason that God or Jesus allowed Peter to do it, there's a special purpose for it. We'll find it at the end of this passage. And I find it interesting. You know, the last couple of weeks, we have talked just about Jesus. Just going through the Gospels, talking about different things about Jesus the first week we talked about how Jesus, he calmed the storm that was scaring the disciples to death. And we decided that, hey, if Jesus can calm, and if he's in control of all of nature, and he can calm the most grotesque of physical storms, then he can calm the storms that go on in our lives as well. Right? Then last week we talked about how Jesus was the king of rejection, about how Jesus was rejected more than we'll ever be rejected by his peers, by his hometown, by the government, by everyone around him. How he was rejected. And we decided that, you know what? Even though Jesus was rejected by men, he didn't let that fear of rejection by those people keep him from accomplishing his purpose. And thus, neither should we. Right? So this week, we kind of take on something else about Jesus. And I love this story about Jesus and Peter. So let's go ahead and read right here. It's Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 23. You can read along with me if I can find it. There it is. All right. It says, immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. All right, let me tell you what happened at this point. Okay? Jesus had just experienced a very personal tragedy in his life. John the Baptist, who was a forerunner, he was called a forerunner for Jesus. He was going to come and do what for Jesus? Prepare the way. He's going to prepare the way for the Lord. You don't want to hear me sing that, all right? Prepare the way for the Lord. That's what John the Baptist was coming to do for Jesus. So he was coming saying, I'm not Jesus, I'm not the Messiah, but I come preparing the way for the one who is to come, who is the Messiah. And he's going to come and he's going to do everything that the writers of the Old Testament said he was going to do. So John the Baptist got this little situation with Herod's daughter, okay? King Herod at the time, or Herod decided, he's like, you know what, I'm going to give my daughter any present she wants. Now, what does any good daughter want? Like a dollhouse, I'm thinking maybe like a trip to Cancun or something like that. She wanted John the Baptist's head, right, on a platter. That's what she specifically asked for. So her dad actually had a hard time with this because he respected John the Baptist in a different type of way. But because he promised his daughter that he would give her anything that she wanted, and she wanted a person's head on a platter, all right, he decided he had to do that for her. So John the Baptist had just died. It's a big personal loss to Jesus. A big personal loss to Jesus. And he was mourning because of that. And so Jesus immediately, in this next passage, we find out in Matthew chapter 14:13 that it says, when Jesus heard this, he withdrew from there in a boat to a desolate place by himself. That news troubled him so much that he withdrew from everybody else. He needed to get away and mourn. But, so the crowds followed him. The crowds followed him. Like, he was so captivating, the crowds followed him. They couldn't get enough of him, so they followed him. And so then you come across a situation where Jesus is teaching, he has all these people there, and all these people begin to get hungry. He says there's 5,000 men, and that didn't include all the women and children that were with them. So then you come across a story where Jesus feeds the 5,000. Again, that's men, not women and children. And then that's where they come up to this point. So we're getting, Jesus tells them, hey, go get in the boat. I've got to go do something. And that's where we come to in this point of the story. Okay, so let's read here verse 23. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But the boat, by this time, was a long way from land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them, walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost." and they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And Jesus said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink. And beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me!" Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got to the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." Now, before we get into anything else, the miracle happened of Peter walking on the water and then Jesus coming out, walking on the water himself. The miracle happened so that what happened at the very end there? So that the disciples worshiped him. Anytime you see these miracles happen, you see Jesus doing that not to gain power and strength for himself, not to gain status and fame, but so that the people would what? Worship him, worship God. That's what Jesus had in mind. That's what Jesus wanted the whole time. Remember, Jesus is taking these goofballs around, trying to help them figure out who in the world he was, because he was going to leave, and he had a purpose, taking them around to carry his name out to all these people once he left. But Jesus did that miracle, allowed that miracle to allow them the chance and the opportunity to draw them to a place where they were going to worship God. What do I see out of this passage? There's a lot of interesting things that I notice about Jesus out of this passage, and therefore about you and I out of this passage. The first thing I notice is this, is that prayer is an integral, a vital part of your life and my life. Look at what Jesus said here. Look at what Jesus did. It didn't say that he got in the boat with the disciples and took off. It said Jesus had to slip away for a little bit, alone, in a place of solitude, in a place all by himself. He had to slip up, and he went up to the mountainside and began to pray. Prayer is an integral part of your spiritual life. And I'll guarantee you this, if you're not praying on a consistent basis, you don't know God like you should. If you are not praying on a consistent basis, you do not and cannot know God like he wants you to know God. It's a necessity for knowing God. Look at Luke chapter 18, verse 1. Luke 18, 1. Let's flip over here fast. Luke chapter 18, verse 1. Luke 18, 1 says this, "And he told them a parable to the effect that they ought always to pray and not lose heart." Jesus in his ministry here on earth, remember, he brought the disciples up to pray with him before he endured that awful, terrible punishment that he took and bore on our behalf. He brought them up to pray. Prayer is an integral part of your relationship with God, and it was an integral part, meaning a very important part, a vital part of Jesus' relationship with God. Think about it. If Jesus thought it was so important for him to go up and pray on the mount to communicate with God, to talk to God, how important then do you guys think it is for us to regularly go to a place of solitude, a place that's quiet, and pray and communicate with God? If Jesus, who is perfect, who was tempted in all ways but was perfect in the midst of that, if he thought it was important, how important is it for you, for fallible, error-prone you and I to do that? Who just thinks they mess up all the time in here? I do. Man, I'm just a complete failure. Man, it feels like I'm always having to get on my hands and knees before God and just pray and ask for forgiveness. And that shouldn't be the time that God always hears from you. It needs to be in that heartfelt moment. You know what, God, I just want to praise you for who you are. I want to give you thanks. I want to tell you how awesome, how great you are. You are special. You're unique. You're awesome. We ought to come to God more than just the times when something's wrong. 1 Thessalonians 5:17 says this, says pray without ceasing. Romans 12, verse 12 says be constant in prayer. Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 20, where it's talking about the armor of God. It goes through all this armor of God, the breastplate of righteousness, the helmet of what? Salvation. It goes through all these different things. It goes through all these different things that protect your body in a physical way, but then it also says in there, it says, and prayer is an important part of this protection. Ephesians 6, 10 through 20, go read it. Prayer is an integral part of your life and of my life. And again, I'll say it again, if Jesus thought it was so important to go away and pray on different occasions, how much more often should you and I seek to get away and go and pray to God? How much more often should we do that? The first thing that I see is at the very beginning of the story. It says Jesus sent the disciples away, and what did he do? He went and prayed. Sometimes, guys, you will hear the answers to life's biggest questions